Today, it's hard to imagine any major modern city without its own metro system. But just over a century ago, underground railways were still a rarity in most parts of the world. Let's explore where, how, and why the very first metro was built. By the mid-1800s, London's population had already surpassed 2 million, and the city was literally choking in traffic. Railways were developing rapidly, but all train stations were located outside the city center. Extending railway lines closer to the city was forbidden by law to protect historical buildings. The solution was revolutionary: to build a railway underground. In 1860, construction began on the world's first metro line, from Paddington to Farringdon. The 6-kilometer line was built using the cut-and-cover method. A huge trench was dug, tracks were laid, and then the whole thing was covered with a roof. On January 10, 1863, the metro officially opened. On the very first day, it carried 30,000 passengers. The first trains were steam-powered. Just imagine, you're riding in a closed carriage deep underground, surrounded by smoke and fumes. The carriages were divided into 3 classes, but the only real difference was the number of gas lamps inside. With their narrow windows and opaque glass, the carriages were so dark and eerie that people nicknamed them padded cells, like the rooms in a mental asylum. After the success of the first line, a real underground race began. Dozens of private companies started building their own sections of the metro, but there was no unified development plan, and each company cut corners wherever possible. Narrow platforms, low ceilings, minimal comfort. The goal was simply to make it work. Passenger comfort was rarely considered. Only decades later did major reconstruction begin, expanding tunnels, renovating old stations, and merging all lines into a single, unified system. In 1933, an electrician named Harry Beck proposed a revolutionary map, one where stations and lines were not shown according to their actual geography, but simplified like an electrical circuit diagram. At first, the idea was met with skepticism, but the map turned out to be so convenient and easy to read that it soon became the global standard for metro maps around the world. Although the metro was built with budget constraints in mind, the architecture of some stations was truly impressive. Stations were designed in Victorian style: arched ceilings, brick walls, stained glass, and ornate detailing. Later came Art Deco and modernism. Interestingly, mosaics and ceramic tiles on the walls weren't just decorative. They were used to reflect light and brighten the tunnels, even before electric lighting became widespread. The London Underground was the first of its kind, but not always the safest. In the early 20th century, fires, smoke, and accidents were not uncommon. Over time, strict safety standards were introduced: signaling systems, emergency exits, ventilation, and fire suppression. And in the 21st century came driverless trains, contactless payment gates, and surveillance cameras covering nearly every meter of the network. Today, almost every major city in the world has a metro. It saves us from traffic jams, saves time, and opens up an entire underground world beneath our feet. And it all began with London's smoke and the desire to make the city more livable. Today, the London Underground is the 4th longest in the world, but far from the top in passenger numbers. The Moscow Metro ranks first in Europe, with nearly 2.5 billion passengers per year, twice as many as in London. But it was the London Underground that came first and showed the world that Metro is the transport of the future. So now, every time you step down into a subway station, remember, it all started in 1863, beneath the streets of Old London.